what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
Foot Candle Films. Film news and reviews from two guys who really like movies.
This episode is brought to you by the Foot Candle Film Society. For a schedule of upcoming screenings and membership information, visit the Society's website at www.footcandle.org.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. My name is Alan Jackson. Across the table from me is Chris Fry. We are both with the Foot Candle Film Society and the annual Foot Candle Film Festival. And Foot Candle Films is where we get together and we discuss new films. We give our reviews and analysis, and then we also share anything from movie news to recommendations of other films we think you ought to check out. And occasionally we'll play some trailers and talk about movie trailers that we're interested in following. And Chris, we kind of lied last week. I don't know if it's okay for me to bring this up. I mean, I typically don't like to call attention to the fact whenever we tell a fib. Yeah. But we did say we were done with 2023 last week because we did our best of the year.
Right.
You know, we kind of did our final review. We thought we're like, okay, we're done. Buttoned up 2023, done year. We're moving on to the new year.
Sure.
Okay. Kind of lied a little bit because technically both of the films we're going to be reviewing here in a moment are 2023 releases. They were ones that are still under consideration for awards and so forth in the 2023 year. So we've still got a little 2023 to catch up on. Sure. I hope that's okay with everybody. But these are films that came out, I think, pretty much Christmas Day, I think, is when both of them came out.
Right.
So again, we're catching up with them relatively close to their opening date. Don't know if they're even still showing in theaters. Unfortunately, both of them, I think, went pretty quick. Right. So that's going to be kind of our reviews, is understanding, is that warranted? Why did these movies go and leave the theater so quick? And do we feel like that was a justifiable thing or not based on our reviews? So enough teasing on that. The two films we're going to be reviewing are the latest from director Michael Mann, starring Mr. Adam Driver, Shailene Woodley, and it is Ferrari. And then we're going to be discussing the latest iteration of the film, or the novel, the book, turned into a film, The Color Purple, this time as a musical. And we'll be discussing that film here shortly in a little bit. That one directed by Blitz Buzzawoo.
Just kind of a fun name to say.
It is, yep. Starring Fantasia Barrino, Tarja P. Henson, and Danielle Brooks. So we've got two films to review and discuss. Again, both of them, I'll just go ahead and say, kind of bombed at the box office. Didn't make a lot of waves. I mean, again, I looked up in our local theater. Neither of these are playing as of today anymore. And they just premiered 2 weeks ago. Sure. So that's a little tough, but again, that's what our reviews are here to decide. Are the theater chains making the right move, or is the general public making the right move by kind of not going in flux to see these movies? We will be the arbiters of deciding that here in just a moment. So Chris, are you ready to get into our
heavy responsibility?
I did pile a lot onto us here to get started this morning, but are you ready to get into our first review, which is Michael Mann's Ferrari?
Sure.
Okay, great. Chris said sure, so we're ready to go. Let's get into it. Michael Mann's Ferrari.
Two objects cannot occupy the same point in space at the same moment in time. The corner races at you. You have perhaps a crisis of identity. Am I a sportsman? Or a competitor?
Ferrari tells the story of Enzo Ferrari and his auto empire at a time of crisis. This is back in the summer of 1957. The film focuses in on a very specific time period in Enzo's life. He himself, an ex-racer who's turned into an entrepreneur. He is constantly pushing himself and the drivers that he works for him to the edge as they get ready to launch the Mille Miglia. I hope I said that right.
Close enough.
Mille Miglia, which is a 1,000-mile race across Italy that is kind of a make or break race for Ferrari. He needs to make sure he's got a good performance in this race to save his company, all along the same time dealing with a failing marriage that is on a much different status now because of the introduction of another woman that he has been having a relationship with for a while. All of this kind of coming to head in one summer. So we have a biography film that does take place in a very set period of time. There are flashbacks. There are some moments where you get some broader story, but really all of the actual action in this movie takes place over a very short period of time. We have Adam Driver starring as Enzo Ferrari. We have Shailene Woodley starring as his Lena Lardy, who's girlfriend. Girlfriend on the side. And then we have also Penelope Cruz starring as Laura Ferrari, his official wife, and also co-owner of the Ferrari company with him. So Chris, I'll just go ahead and set this up this way. So my son is a car auto fanatic, and that's what he does for a living. He works with cars, and I was expecting him to be very excited when we saw that I had an opportunity to see this movie, Ferrari.
Did you?
And he still hasn't had a chance to see it. But you were over at my house just recently for, I forget which holiday event, something.
New Year's.
That's right. New Year's Eve. And I think the conversation I heard next to me coming up about the film Ferrari, and I think Alex, or maybe one of my other sons, was asking, what you thought. And I'm pretty sure from the side of the room, I saw you just kind of shake your head and groan and be like, ugh, no. So now here's my lead up to this. This is my lead up to this review. I'm going to kick it over to you because I want to hear from Chris. Did I truly hear an audible, no, like when you're describing this film? And if so, I'd like to hear why. I'd like to hear the explanations. And then I'll let you know if I agree or disagree with your take on this film. So Michael Mann's Ferrari. Chris, go.
So this is excellent for podcasting, like, groaning or shaking head, because that translates really well. So What I'll do is I will give you, I was expecting vroom, 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 and I experienced putt, putt, putt.
Oh.
So that's essentially my problem with
I don't
Ferrari
know if
Encapsulated.
That was really good or not. I can't decide.
The film just, the acting was good. Penelope Cruz gives a good performance as kind of the wife who knows she's being cheated on. Adam Driver, no surprise there. Also good. Where the movie fell down for me, kind of along similar lines, it's suffering from the Napoleon Maestro effect. Focusing a lot on like affairs or relationship drama as opposed to what makes that individual unique. Lots of people have affairs. Lots of people have relationship drama with their wives or, paramours on the side. Yeah. That, as speaking to me, doesn't interest me. Mm-hmm. I want to know what made Napoleon a genius on the battlefield. I want to know creatively how Leonard Bernstein was able to put these pieces together and what made him a genius. I see him conducting, okay, but what makes him unique? What makes him stand out over thousands of other conductors? With Ferrari, even though it was well acted, and it was, it's Michael Mann, it was the camera work and the editing, razor sharp.
Yeah.
It's just the script kind of wasn't that interesting to me, and what I was shown wasn't that interesting to me. I felt like I didn't get enough of what made Ferrari unique. There was a little bit where he was using his one of his sons that he has with the Shailene Woodley character, and he's kind of asking him questions about a car, and they have some schematics, I think, out of that. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was, trying to get some insight into like maybe more time spent, I guess, in the factory or something, like something showing me his genius as maybe an innovator or something. I got the fact that, this sounds kind of dumb as a pun, that he was driven, considering the actor's name is Adam Driver. But I just got that. I got the fact that this was a very determined man. But like, take, for instance, I'll throw out another biopic from several years ago. Michael Fassbender playing Steve Jobs. Mm-hmm. Everybody knows Steve Jobs was, laser focused and could be very caustic to people. But somehow I still felt I learned things about him or got some nuance. Yeah. And Adam Driver, in his performance of Enzo Ferrari, I don't know. I just felt like it was missing something.
Can I branch off of
this? Yes, absolutely. I've rattled on enough.
Well, no, I think you're onto something. And I think I appreciate this movie a little more than you, but I still can agree with you on the general issue with the film. And it is very much, like you said, I think an issue that we had with Maestro, Bradley Cooper's Maestro as well.
And that I may have had more than you, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think the problem with these biopics and these films is, you're right. We don't really get a sense of why this person is respected, revered, or admired for the role that they're supposed to be playing. And I think it's just they're taking for granted that we, the audience, are going to just know, okay, well, obviously, if he's Ferrari, that he's a good business person, or he's an excellent former racer or whatever. And we don't really get that. I think more than anything, more specifically to me, Chris, I think the problem is these films don't explore to us why the other characters in the film respond or react or feel about that main character the way they do. It's all taken for granted. It is all assumed. Okay. And I think with Enzo Ferrari, I mean, we meet people who race for him. We meet people who work for him. We meet people who are involved with him romantically. We meet people all around him. And there's just passing tales of, yes, Enzo Ferrari's an amazing man. And Enzo Ferrari's spectacular. But we don't ever get any sense. It's hard for me to understand why people are going to react and feel and respond to him the way they do without giving me some of that background on him. And I think Maestro was the same way. It's like, I think I even said in our review, it's like, all I heard were people say, well, of course, Leonard Bernstein's great. I'm like, okay, but tell me why everybody thinks he's great. Tell me why everybody feels this
show
way.
Me.
Or show me.
Show
either
me.
way.
Really show me.
Tell me in terms of visually telling me on the film. Yeah, whatever. Just give me some sense of it so I can be along for the ride with those other characters.
Along for the ride.
That was totally unintentional. Yeah. I think that's the problem with Ferrari is that, yes, it just didn't explore enough about why people felt this way about this man, in any direction to really make sense of why we should then care when things happen to him or the people around him. So because you're right. Otherwise it's just, okay, all I know from this is, yes, he had a car company. There were racers that raced cars for him. He had a wife that he was cheating on. Okay, that's it. I mean, that's pretty much what I got from this about him. And obviously there's a lot more to get from it. Everybody else in the film seems to understand that, but there's no telling or showing to us, the audience, why. So anyway, I think we're on the same page with our concern with it. I agree, technically speaking. I think this is a technically proficient film. I think it looks good. I think it's shot well. I will say the driving sequences, I think, are really, really good.
Yes, which not a surprise that somebody as seasoned as Michael Mann can make, he director of Heat, he can make an action movie or like cars. He knows how to edit. He knows how to shoot things to make it interesting. Yeah, those were good. Yeah.
And I will say I wasn't overwhelmed with anybody's performance acting wise, with the exception of, I will say, Penelope Cruz. I do think was really good in this. Adam Driver, is it Adam Driver with accents? Is that the problem we have? Because I didn't care for him in House of Gucci either. I don't know what the problem is here. I mean, because Adam Driver is an awesome actor. I love him in so many things.
Agreed.
But what is it about when he tries to play a part or play with an accent or, in this case, a hairline? I mean, what is it? What is it that just doesn't work from his performance? Because I don't know. It just didn't connect for me.
I didn't. I've heard, interesting, you bring up accent work in this film. I didn't really notice. I mean, I noticed his a little, but the one that really jumped out to me was Shailene Woodley. And I've heard a lot of people come down on her. But I don't know. That to me, I just felt like Adam Driver, even though he's kind of the central figure, I don't feel like he had enough kind of to do, kind of because like what we were saying, to show us the things
the film was all about people reacting to him.
I wouldn't say he did a bad job. It's just that I don't feel like he was made to be kind of like a robot almost.
Yeah.
And so,
no, you're right. I think that's probably part of it.
And so, but interestingly, you bring up House of Gucci, which Adam Driver was in that, and directed by a different director, but also an Italian. So that film, to me, I mean, some people criticize it, and the accents were kind of crazy. Lady Gaga was in that, and Jared Leto doing the crazy brother. But that to me was more entertaining. And I felt like I got, and I didn't know a lot about that other than, yes, Gucci's a fashion brand, but I felt like I got a lot more out of it. And with this film about a famous person that's behind a big brand, I'm going to just say script. Yes, something about it didn't make it as successful. And over 2-hour film, both are over 2 hours. This one just, I was kind of bored a lot of the time. So I think that hurt my overall impression. So you mentioned, we both talked about a little bit House of Gucci, another film kind of as a reference point. Interestingly enough, I want to bring up another one because Mr. Mann was actually an executive producer on this film, Ford versus Ferrari.
Oh yeah, right.
And I like that. We reviewed that film, I think, a couple of years ago when it came out. I liked that film much more. And maybe because it taught me a little bit about the competition between Ford and Ferrari, and was about the people trying to do this race. I think it was a different race, not the Mille Miglia that this one was, but different race, but still very important for both. Okay, so it was Le Mans. Still very important for both companies at the time. I guess Ford more so than Ferrari, but still, it was along the same lines. But I thought that was just much more interesting to me. And maybe because, like you say, I'm not a big car person. Yeah. So maybe coming into it, I care more about kind of what they were trying to do behind the scenes to make this work, as opposed to focusing on one person.
Well, and I think, I'm going to talk out of both ends of my mouth here, because we in the past have said, I've at least said, when it comes to biopics, I do kind of like it when they don't try to do a birth to death story and pick a pivotal point of
which
time.
Both of these films did. One did Le Mans and one did this other mile race.
But the difference with Ford versus Ferrari is it was a longer story. Okay, and that there was actually time where you're learning about the characters that are involved. You're getting some background on them. You're understanding what's bringing them together, and how these two characters are going to, learn from one another and work together. There was a lot of background time is spent on building a background. With Ferrari, I mean, we pretty much, other than a black and white little newsreel looking flashback at the very beginning, it's pretty much dropped in. Right.
I felt
it didn't work.
That didn't work for me. I felt it was a little odd.
It looked, which is odd to say for a Michael Mann film, but it looked fake and it looked weird.
And I think it was the aesthetic of like these newsreel type thing, but just something about it.
It was a little off.
Know. Yeah.
But after that newsreel intro, I mean, it really is. We're just dropped in, and the story is kind of already underway. It's like this is already all happening. So the company's in turmoil. We're trying to build up racers to get to this race, and I'm already cheating on my wife, and I've already got this relationship with this other woman. It's like that's all happening. So there was no real getting a sense of who everybody is and why these things are important to us, the viewer. So Ford versus Ferrari did a much better job of that because it was a broader story, and you had more time to kind of spend with each character and understanding their background and what they were bringing to the table. And I mean, Ford versus Ferrari was designed as a more of a quote entertainment movie. I mean, it's a stand up and cheer movie. It's a
overcoming adversity.
That's right. That's not Ferrari. Ferrari
different
really,
type of film. Sure.
I'm not gonna spoil the ending, but I mean, it's based on a true story, and the ending does end in a different place where it starts. But it's not a rip roaring good time type of film like I think Ford versus Ferrari was designed to do. So I think people are going to walk away like they like that film better, understandably. This one, I think it's an interesting film. I do like. I enjoyed watching it. I didn't get the boredom that you did, luckily. But I can see how it could be boring to people. I totally get that. I mean, if you're not invested in the characters and it's just you're not being given enough to really understand why you should be invested in these characters, then any movie becomes really boring at that point. I had just enough interest in what was going on to keep me engaged in this film, but It could have been. It could have been better with a better script. I think for sure.
And you kind of alluded to in the intro about why this film may not have been as successful in theaters. And I'll say, for me, as someone who was, like you mentioned, kind of bored at times, I think when you see Ferrari, you're thinking, oh yeah, there's going to be like tons of racing and stuff. Yeah. And now the sequences that were in there were compelling, like we've mentioned, were good. But I thought there actually would be a little bit more racing and a little less relationship
a little light
drama
on the racing.
Now, that being said, the accident scene that happens kind of later in the film, that is pretty brutal.
Yeah,
and
it
pretty,
is. Shockingly
so.
Yeah.
So there again, the things that are in the racing that is in there is compelling, but I thought there would be more. Let me end with a positive because I like to do that.
Well, before you get to the positive,
Sure.
I'll just say, like what you just described is very much the same thing we said about Maestro. Is that it was so much more focused on the relationship than it was the person that we thought we were watching the film about and their work. This had the same thing. It's like it was like 75% relationship and family drama versus the actual business or life work and what they're known for. And Maestro is very much the same way. And I think that's also something that some people walked away from both of these films saying it's not what I thought I was getting into.
Here's the thing too. And, people, you and I've joked about having Marvel fatigue or comic book. And I know pretty much every year you usually have one or two biopics that come out around this time for Oscar consideration. You had Bohemian Rhapsody and you had Rocket Man. So those were two that, in recent years. But this year just seems like there's just been an overabundance. Oppenheimer, Maestro, Napoleon, Ferrari. I think by the time and this was the last in that sequence that I had seen, I maybe it's a mea culpa. I'm kind of like burned out on.
Well, there's a little bit. I think there's probably a little bit of that too. I guarantee you that did not help its box office at all. What is it with biographies and just one word titles too? I mean, that seems to be all the ones we had, right?
It makes them seem important.
I guess so.
Like Ferrari,
All right, but you were going to end on a positive.
Yes,
Look, I had positives
I
on this. I'll just say before I get to yours.
Sure, go ahead.
Penelope Cruz, I think, is great. She's the only performance in this that really kind of stands out to me. It's like, oh wow, that was a really good role.
Sure.
Everybody else is just passable from a performance standpoint. I thought. I do think the driving sequences were amazing and fun to watch, and I would watch those over again. And I thought I was interested in general in what was going on and the story behind what we're seeing in the predicament in general. And that's kind of it. So I'm at a 3-star level for this, where I think there's enough there to keep my interest and get me going, but it's not a high recommendation for me. So Chris, you give me a positive and let me know where you wrap up on this.
Sure. So my positive, I was worried you were going to mention it because I was like, oh no, that's going to be my end note positive. I really enjoyed seeing Patrick Dempsey show up out of nowhere as a race car driver, Piero Taruffi. He was a surprise to me. I saw him earlier this year in the horror comedy Thanksgiving, and it was the first time I'd seen him in a while. Mm-hmm. And to see him show up in this, also like in that, plays a very different kind of role. In this, also like race car driver, like all white hair and everything. I'm like, oh, okay, kind of fun. Kind of woke me up for the part of the film. I was like, wait, is that Patrick Dempsey? So that was kind of fun.
I agree with you. That was good.
Fun little cameo.
Didn't have a whole lot to do. It was a pretty small part, but it was fun to see still. So yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think overall where I fall in the film, if we're going to do star ratings, probably, I guess, and then there again, maybe some biopic fatigue, probably like a 2.5.
Okay.
So
all right, that sounds about right where we were in the conversation. So yeah, I got a little more out of it, but I fully agree. It is a film that's lacking, and it just never quite gave us the reason why we should care about Enzo Ferrari.
Right.
I'm not saying you got to turn him into a saint or got to make him somebody that we admire. I just need to know. I need to understand more why he has the impact he has on the people around him, and the film just didn't really share that. And I think it would have benefited a lot from some of that background information. It would have helped build these relationships and characters a lot, just give them a lot more life in the film than I feel like what we got. So that is Ferrari. Like I said, it's already off wide release theaters, at least the ones that we're familiar with. maybe still be playing somewhere near you. Maybe still some bigger cities still have it running for a while. But that also means it will probably be online before too long, relatively quickly. So
Sure.
If you are a Michael Mann fan of his films, I think it's a worthwhile entry into his filmography. I'm about 50% on Michael Mann films as far as seeing them. There's some I just haven't seen.
Sure.
But the ones I have seen, I generally like. I think he's a good director.
You're partial because of Last of the Mohicans.
Well, yes, because I worked with him.
There you go.
Right. Yes. We had dialogue on the set of Mohicans. We just call them Mohicans.
He
Chris.
was
We don't do the
screaming
whole-
at you through a megaphone, but you heard his voice.
We don't do the last of.
Sure.
We just say Mohicans. Everybody
Mohicans.
knows what we're talking about.
Understood.
Yeah. He did shout at me through a megaphone at one time, so that's my claim to fame.
Yeah, you've had dialogue.
So he's always going to have a special place in my heart, his films. But no, I do think he's a very good technical director of these things. And I think Ferrari is a worthwhile entry in his filmography. Just the script could have been better and could have given us a little more to grab onto, I think, to appreciate this film more. So, okay, Chris, are we ready to move on to our second review?
Yes.
Let's
We've
talk-
crossed the finish line with Ferrari.
Okay. Oh man. And you bringing it up, I never connected Adam Driver playing a race car driver.
There was this whole Twitter
Really?
storm about Driver and Cruz, because her last name Penelope Cruz, like cruise control.
Oh my
driver.
God.
There were all these jokes. Yeah,
Oh my-
totally.
how did I miss all this?
Good for you that you missed it.
No,
good
that's
for you.
I'm normally so quick on those things, and that's both of those just raced right by me.
There you go. There you go.
Did not see that. That probably would have helped my enjoyment of the film even more if I'd realized that going into it. Oh my gosh, Cruz, Driver,
Yeah.
and Ferrari. Oh boy. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Let's move on to our next film, our second and final review, which is the film The Color Purple.
Don't keep me waiting.
You keep your head held high, just like Mom taught us.
Whatever I say, go.
You got to stand up.
Hell no.
There's gonna be some changes made.
The Color Purple is another telling of the story that a famous book, unfortunately, Alice Walker.
Alice Walker,
the writer of this novel. It was turned into a film back in, I think, 85, 86, if I remember correctly.
By some Steven Spielberg.
Yes. Steven Spielberg directed that film starring Whoopi Goldberg.
And Oprah Winfrey.
Oprah Winfrey was in that as well. Yep. It was a big film at the time. It
Sure.
did really got a lot of great attention. I think people really consider that a classic. So it's always a little treacherous when you hear that you're going to do another version of a beloved film, especially a beloved film based on a beloved book. This version, though, a little different in that it is taken more from the the stage performance of The Color Purple, which is a musical. Chris, I saw a performance of The Color Purple just a couple years ago here in our own hometown.
As did I.
Where a lot of the music that we heard was music that was from the show. So that's the take on this. And that's how I think there was enough rationale to say, let's make another version. Because stylistically and visually and tone and everything is very different than the Spielberg 80s version.
Sure.
The story, for anybody not familiar, it tells the story of Celie, who is a woman who faces many, many hardships in her life. We meet all the people that she kind of comes into contact in her life, both people as positives and as negatives towards her life. But all along, she ultimately finds extraordinary strength and hope in the unbreakable bonds of sisterhood as she pines for a lost relationship with her sister, Nettie. So with all that, Chris, I've always been a big fan of the Spielberg version of this film.
Yeah. Okay.
Always did really appreciate that. I generally really, really like the story. I always like these characters. So I was intrigued to see this as a new interpretation of the film. But let me ask you your thoughts on The Color Purple. Did this do anything to elevate this story? Did it do anything that was a disservice or harm previous versions? How do you feel like this what does this do for the story of The Color Purple, for those people who are so familiar with it and are used to the other versions? What does this add to the mix here?
I have never read the novel, but I have seen the Steven Spielberg version, and I've seen, as you mentioned, I both saw the musical when it was here locally in town. For me, this made me appreciate it even more so. It's a tough story, and told like the Spielberg version, which was not a musical. It's a tough sit because there's a lot of unfortunate things that happen, and so the musical, the stage performance kind of helps that a little bit because the songs can kind of pull it along and make just the music can kind of sometimes be a little bit upbeat and help moments. Mm-hmm. The thing that then to me helped take this story to another level was the fact that you were able to take the musical aspect, but then use cinematic language to make it even more dynamic. So for me, this is the best version of The Color Purple that I've ever seen. I'm a big fan of the film. That's why it was one of my top 5 films. In our last episode, I listed it as one of my top 5 of the year, even though it was a familiar story. So, you think, well, what can be brought new to it? What's worth seeing if you've already seen the original, or if you've seen the stage musical? Like, it's just that broad. Because we have reviewed things like Dear Evan Hansen, or the In the Heights, and those were, so it's like I'm higher on this than I am on those. And why? Because I was familiar with this already, and I think it's just, I think the director, whose name Blitz Bazawule, I think is how you say his last name. Fun name to say. I just think his energy that he brings to it really works for me. And, the cinematography, just all the things just really hit for me and really worked. And, last but not least, the cast. Mm-hmm. So now I'll shut up and toss it over to you, Alan. Mm-hmm. What was your response with The Color Purple?
Okay, so I'm just going to go and lay this out there.
Okay.
I did really like this film.
Okay.
So just go ahead, just know that that's the underlying message I'm sharing.
I feel like there's a but coming.
I do have a couple buts, but look,
Okay.
ultimately, even I'm going to throw a couple things out that I had some issues with.
Oh.
Just
okay.
know that I did like this film.
Okay.
I did really like it. I had a really good time with this. I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Okay. But you're saying your quotes aren't going to go in the Criterion Collection box?
Well, it's and it has nothing to do with the cast and the performances. They are all stellar.
Okay.
Very, very happy across the board.
Okay.
The director that you mentioned, Blitz
Yes.
Bazawule.
We'll just call him Blitz.
Yeah, Blitz.
First name basis.
He
Sure.
So he's more known for music videos.
Okay.
He has directed some TV. I think he's directed some other pieces, but he was known for doing what was the one film? The one thing he did for Beyonce.
Was it Lemonade or the one that came after
No, it was
that?
a different than Lemonade. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Oh gosh.
Black is King. Is that the
Yes,
one?
that's it.
Which I haven't seen. And I have not seen Lemonade either.
I have not either, but
Okay.
visually and stylistically, it's very, very interesting. And The Color Purple is visually and stylistically very interesting. But I can't get away from the fact that I did feel like it's shot and edited more like a 2-hour music video than it is a film.
And that didn't bother me.
Okay,
but
that's
I can
fine.
see, I hear that criticism.
All right.
I can say, okay.
And that by itself wasn't my criticism. That is something you notice and you feel. I felt like, guys, this is going to get very, very specific, but there's so many times there were shots that would start on a close-up of something in the foreground, and then it does this big swooping motion and kind of shows a big landscape behind it. I mean, it happened like probably 8 or 10 times in the movie. The actions like that, where it's like it's shot very much in I've got a certain thing, look, I want to show this shot in. And I just felt like the whole movie had this look that made it a little harder for me to connect to it.
Wow. Okay.
The other thing that I think that affected it is the story is a pretty dense story. There's a lot of characters. There's a lot of actions. There's a lot of plot points that kind of move along between the characters. And I do feel like the film, I know it's a 2 hour and 15-minute film or so. It was already, lengthwise, it was nowadays a traditional film.
Sure.
Pretty much.
Most are this thing, yeah.
But I do feel like it was pushing ahead pretty quickly in a lot of places.
Which I liked. I liked the
you
fact
liked.
that it moved.
I hearkened back to my story about Ferrari, where it's one of those things where if you know the story,
Well,
I think it's great. Because I did know the story, and I looked at it, I'm like, oh yeah, well, this is when she's going to go travel here, and then this is when this person's going to come visit, and I know what's going to happen between these two people. But the whole time I'm also thinking, yeah, but you know what? If I didn't know the story and have already seen it in different iterations, take a character like who I know you're going to sing praises for, Danielle Brooks,
sure,
as Sophia, who I also agree was amazing.
And I like her as an actress anyway. Yeah. She's my favorite part of Orange is the New Black.
Agreed.
So I just big fan.
But if I were to watch just this movie, just this film version, the character of Sophia, I basically feel like I'm seeing Sophia's greatest hits. Like, okay, I see the moment she arrives. I see the moment she has a confrontation with Celie about how to work with her husband.
Right.
And then I see the scene where she comes back and, in the scene with the mayor's wife.
Right.
It's like, okay, but later in the film, we're told that Sophia looks up to Celie, and that Celie is the person who saved her life and has given her so much inspiration. I'm like, okay, didn't quite see that, but I get it because, again, I know the story. Yes, I know that's what this relationship is.
Right.
But that's just an example of where I feel like the film is, we have to hit these points, we have to get to these plot points, and we have to.
And you didn't have
these
that
scenes.
problem with the stage version.
Not as
because
much.
I can see what you're saying, but I think I could see people making similar things because it's a very musical structure where you have supporting people who have a big number and then come back around. Like Hamilton has this. It's
more forgiving
structure.
in a stage performance because you do have a certain number of scenes and sets and locations that you can work with, and you've got to do a little bit of filling in the blanks yourself.
Okay.
In a movie, we don't have that limitation. I mean, so I do feel like the film was going after the Color Purple greatest hits. And like, let's move to this scene. We got to get to this scene. There's a sequence where, Suge Avery is taking some of the girls to Memphis with her. And there's a scene there, but we don't really get any sense of why and what's there and what's happening. It's like they're getting quick hits, and then we got to quickly get back because the next plot point is Celie has to have this happen. So I felt that way a lot of times. Again, luckily I knew the story, so it did not cause me to not enjoy the film. It just, I felt rushed. I felt it was, again, the music video version of The Color Purple stretched out to 2 hours. That all said, Chris, I did really like it. I mean, I do think it's really good. I think it's extremely well acted. I think the songs are wonderfully performed. I think most of the musical numbers are shot and done really well. There's a few I wish they'd add a little more energy to. There were some songs that was really just walking and singing. And it's like, okay, I think visually could have been something a little bit more interesting to done. Then they have some other ones that were more dreamlike sequences and more fantastical sequences. Overall, they worked good. I think a couple of them could have been a little stronger. I will say the, Suge Avery's performance in Harpo's club was really good. I mean, that was probably my standout scene where it's like, not only was it just great performances, a lot of energy, but visually it was also just really, really creative how they did it. So I'm with you, Chris. I had a good time with this film. It's not a top 5 for me, but I did really, really appreciate it. I wish there could have been a little more care to the storytelling pacing. So we didn't feel like we were just seeing the plot beats that we had to hit to make sure the story worked. So
when I guess, so the flip side of that is what kept me engaged with the film is the fact that the pacing was pretty brisk.
Yeah.
And now granted, I did know the story, so I didn't think about, I was watching, I knew the story, so it didn't bother me, but I can see that if you weren't familiar with it, that could be kind of a downside. If I had to, if I had a misgiving, and they were okay, but I liked the other ones that weren't dream sequences. There are two instances
I agree.
where it's not that they were poorly done. It's just, I don't know, somehow they didn't work for me quite as well. The two dream numbers I think that they had.
I'm with you. I actually don't think they were that great. I understand absolutely why you would want to have a dream sequence for that song,
sure,
because of the state of mind that the characters are in, and they're trying to look at something better than the situation they're in right now.
Right.
But yeah, they just didn't fit the film, and it was kind of took me out of it a little bit.
Whereas I'll say you called out the Suge Avery number. My favorite number was Sophia's Hell No. I really liked that one. So yeah, it sounds like I enjoyed it more than you did, but you liked it.
I did. So. No, I really did like it. And just to call out a few things, I thought Fantasia Barrino as Celie was fantastic. She was great. I think she played the repressed version of Celie so well for the majority of the film.
Sure.
I bought it. I totally bought her performance, and I also bought her empowerment later in the film, the moments that she has of that too. So it just, she worked top to bottom for me. Taraji P. Henson thought was good and very strong as Suge Avery. Danielle Brooks, already mentioned, yes, very, very good as Sophia. I filled out my ballot before I saw The Color Purple for the year. So if I had to go back, I don't think this film would have changed much of my balloting, except I would have put Danielle Brooks on the list as a supporting actress consideration for sure. And close to that is Coleman Domingo as Mr., who I thought was very, very good as well.
He's very strong.
I will say his evolution is another time where I felt like the movie was just hitting the high points.
Okay. So I will say that his arc is good, but then the last little bit of his arc I felt like was a bit rushed.
It was a bit rushed, and I also don't feel like, again, I don't feel like spoiling The Color Purple is really a thing. It's been around for so long, the story, but Mr., played by Coleman Domingo, does have some sense of redemption,
right?
But it also just kind of left floating out there too. He does something towards the end of the film that is supposed to help try to redeem. It's never going to fully redeem him because he was a horrible person.
Yes,
but there was a sense of trying to find some sense of redemption, and he did.
Right.
But when that moment comes about, he's just kind of left off to the side, and again, because it wasn't one of the highlights and the plot points we needed to showcase. But that's just another example of where I feel like there could have been just some more fleshing out of
maybe
how these characters were, the reasons for doing things, the rationale for them, kind of how these relationships were building. For example, there's a character, they call her Squeak, in the film, who just kind of dropped in. Granted, I knew her from the movie. First movie, I knew her from the play. It's like, and she's just kind of dropped in. Oh, now she's with Harpo. And it's like at one point, she's no longer with Harpo. We don't really understand why. Nobody really says anything. And then now she's like one of Celie's best friends traveling with her. I'm like, yeah, okay. I know that there's a story behind all that. And I get that you can't cover every single detail of the story. But I do feel like it was, again, just let's hit the highlights. Let's just get to the next plot point. And the audience knows these people, so we don't need to fill in all the relationship details. And I feel like some of that suffered for it. So.
See, me coming in all starry-eyed saying, I love this film. It's one of my top 5. Still is. I still love it. But I just look past these little imperfections that you're pointing out.
And they are little imperfections.
I will agree. Because Squeak is played by Gabriella Wilson, who goes by the moniker Her. Yeah. I knew she was in the film, and when she was in it just a bit, I was like, wow, that was really quick. But, I liked the film so much that I just kind of forgot about the fact that she had been that way. You mentioned Mr. Coleman Domingo playing that role and like the arc and stuff. Yeah, maybe after the kind of redemption, if there'd been like just a dialogue scene between Celie where she's like, okay, however, if there'd been some type of...
And I'll tell you why too, Chris. Because at that ending moment... If you had not seen any other version, not read the original novel, the book, you probably would have thought that Celie is back with Mr. Because it sure looked that way in the movie at the end. You know, he's there at the Easter lunch.
That beautiful scene with the tree
yeah.
and everything. Yeah.
He's there at her chair. They're laughing and talking. And then he's like, oh, I've got kind of a surprise for you. And the surprise happens. And then the movie's done. It's like, okay, you know, so, but we don't want Seeley back with Mr. I mean, I know that's not meant to be.
Right.
We want to know that Mr. got some sense of feeling like he did something good to try to absolve a little portion of the harm he's caused.
Right.
But we don't really get that feeling at all. So anyway, again, it was hitting the highlights of The Color Purple, all done very, very well. But just, I do feel like I was watching a highlights version, and I just wish the characters had a little more to breathe and to feel and to let us get to experience these characters, because I did like all of them so much. So
Gotcha.
Anyway, again, that is just more of a, you know, I if there was a 3-hour edit of this somewhere that had a lot more character development and just people, we feel like we could really spend time with these characters and get to understand their relationships, I'd actually be in favor of that. I actually think that would probably work. I'm actually advocating for a longer version of this movie.
Okay.
But yeah, I did. But ultimately, yes, did really like it. Corey Hawkins is Harpo. Didn't mention him, but he's great.
Also,
David Allen Greer is Reverend Avery. It was a nice surprise to see.
He was kind of my Patrick Dempsey for this movie, kind of popping up. I was like, oh, I didn't even know he was in this.
I mean, 2 more. John Batiste as Grady. And did you know that the old Mr. was Louis Gossett Jr.?
I did.
I did not know that until after I saw it in the credits. I'm
okay.
like, didn't realize that. So yeah, some great surprises. And I expected them to work in a cameo.
Oprah was in. Or no, it was
Whoopi Goldberg.
Was Whoopi Goldberg who was in there. Yeah,
I expected that to somehow be woven in, and I think it was done.
Yeah,
it was done in a nice way.
Sure.
So yeah. All right. So this is a top 5 movie of 2023 for you.
Yes.
Okay. Although you didn't rank your movies,
they were alphabetical, right?
In alphabetical order, this was one of your favorite
second.
5.
Okay.
Yeah. Didn't quite make that level for me, but I am on board with it, and I did have a really good time with it. So, a couple misgivings on the pacing and the brevity of some moments and relationships, but overall, I still feel like this is a really good interpretation of the story, and I do recommend it as well. So, that is The Color Purple, directed by Blitz Bezalel. It is, as of today, again, just like Ferrari, it is not playing in theaters that I've checked in our region. Hopefully, if it's playing somewhere near where you are and you have a chance to see it, I do recommend it. It supposedly had a really big Christmas Day opening day, like big numbers, and then nothing after that. So there was a pent up audience to see this. I think it makes for a good Christmas Day movie.
Sure.
But it just wasn't able to retain an audience after that, unfortunately. So, but we recommend, especially Chris, but I recommend as well, checking it out. That's The Color Purple. All right, Chris, that's our 2 reviews. We're going to take a very quick break, and then we've got some news to share and a recommendation that Chris will be sharing with you. I've got some Golden Globes wrap-ups to talk about, and then I've got a new little segment. Probably won't be something we do very often, but I'm still going to throw it out there.
Okay.
That I'm calling Cruise News.
Nice.
Kind of playing
All
off
about
the Ferrari.
Penelope Cruz.
It is about Penelope Cruz. No, it is about our favorite actor, yours and mine, Tom Cruise. Well, maybe just mine. The couple of news items I want to share about that. So stay tuned. We got some news and a recommendation coming up in a minute. This is Foot Candle Films here on themesh.tv, and we'll see you in a moment.
This podcast is sponsored by Jackson Creative, a custom communication agency located in downtown Hickory, North Carolina, specializing in online content creation. To learn more, visit thejacksoncreative.com. Jackson Creative, we tell your story.
Welcome back to Foot Candle Films here on the Mesh.tv podcast network. We had our reviews of The Color Purple and Ferrari earlier in the show. But Chris, let's move on to some news. We did have the first entry in the award season. What do you call it? The award season schedule, I guess.
Okay.
Sure, we'll go with that. I was looking for something more glamorous, but it didn't come out. The first entry into our award season, I guess, officially was the Golden Globes. Golden Globes, kind of, I don't want to say that it's not been taken seriously as much over the years. I mean, it is one of the earliest awards. It's been derided at times because of the makeup of the panel of judges and people have been making decisions. The Golden Globes did go through some evolution and kind of is now managed by different groups and being broadcast on a different TV network. It's kind of tried to change its image a little bit and be a true awards program that is taken seriously. Did it get there this year? I mean, I think it actually, I did watch the ceremony or had it on the background.
Okay.
I think overall their selections and I think the nominations they had were pretty strong.
Okay.
I think this might be a little bit of a teaser indicator of where we might be heading to with the Academy Awards. We'll see. But I thought, Chris, if it's okay, I'm just going to hit some of the highlights on the winners of the Golden Globes. You did not watch this show.
I did not, but this will save me from having to do homework when we make our Oscar predictions because you're going to tell me who won the Golden Globe. And that's a lot of times what people do use those for is kind of predicting where the wind may be blowing. So
I'm going to save you the 3 hours or whatever running time and boil this down in like 1 minute or 2 minutes.
Cool.
So the thing with the Golden Globes I always found interesting is they do have it split out for Best Picture and for Best Actor and Best Actress. They've split it out where they have categories for drama and then they have categories for musical or comedy. And that's typically where things are a little weird because we don't have many straight comedies these days anymore.
Right.
Most comedy films that could be a comedy have a lot of elements of drama and vice versa.
Sure. Your favorite film of the year? The Holdovers.
Yeah. And it was nominated as a musical or comedy. I would not have called it a comedy.
No.
But it definitely has lighter elements to it and some comedic moments. But yeah, that's where I don't really gel with what the Globes do in that regard.
Sure.
But let's kind of play along with their game. And this is the way their winners fell out. Their best motion picture for a drama was Oppenheimer.
Okay.
Oppenheimer did win a lot of awards. On the drama side of their equation, it was pretty much Oppenheimer. Oppenheimer won for Best Picture and also got for Best Actor in a motion picture, drama, which was Cillian Murphy. But then we go over and we look at the Best Picture for musical or comedy, and it was Poor Things. Right.
Okay.
There again.
Not a musical, and I'm assuming they put it in there because comedy, which...
I don't know if it's just a matter of they just count how many times people laugh or chuckle in a movie, and that equates it to being a comedy.
I'm assuming this was a nominee. I think I'm surprised that what I would do assume to be a comedy, Barbie.
Yeah, Barbie
didn't run away with it instead of Poor Things.
No, it was Poor Things. So,
okay.
The nominations for drama were Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Past Lives, The Zone of Interest, and Anatomy of a Fall.
Okay.
Which, yes, I could see all of those being candidates for Best Motion Picture Drama.
Sure.
Then you go over to the musical comedy and you had Poor Things. Mm-hmm. You had Barbie. Mm-hmm. You had American Fiction.
Okay.
The Holdovers. May, December.
What?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I see it's like dark comedy, but classifying that as obviously not a musical. Yeah, that's weird.
Well, and then the last one, because these both had 6.
Sure.
The last one was Air.
Okay.
Which, again, Air had some lighter moments. There was some funny dialogue at times, but
Ben Affleck looked funny.
Yeah, but it's definitely not a comedy.
Nope.
I mean, of these movies, these 6 movies, the only one that I think you could make an argument for being a comedy was Barbie.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And it did have musical elements that I think falls into the musical or comedy category a little bit more. But Poor Things, American Fiction, The Holdovers, May, December, and Air. It's almost like light dramas. It's like, it's almost like they want to separate it as heavy drama or light drama. Which one are you in? Oh, we're in the light drama category, and that's where we are.
Okay.
Anyway, but Poor Things won for, quote, musical or comedy.
Okay.
Best director, and they do not split out directors. So director is for any film.
Okay.
Doesn't matter. Was Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer.
Okay.
Best screenplay, again, not broken out by genre, just best screenplay overall. Anatomy of a Fall by Justin Triet.
Okay.
Anatomy of a Fall actually won a couple of awards, which was nice to see. Best performance by an actor in a motion picture drama was Cillian Murphy, already mentioned. We got over to best performance by an actress in a motion picture drama, and that was Lily Gladstone for Killers of a Flower Moon.
Okay.
I think that's the only award it won, was best actress in a drama. Best actress in a musical or comedy was Emma Stone for Poor Things.
Wow.
So Poor Things and Oppenheimer kind of won the big ones across the board.
Because I think of Golden Globes being more
Commercial.
and not critic based, but Poor Things would seem to indicate otherwise.
And that's
Because
why
I
I think
thought Margot Robbie would have just run away with it.
I
for Barbie.
kind of feel like they've
Shifted.
typed it up a little bit and just gotten a little more focused on all films and not just going with the ones that were always the commercial winners.
Okay. Because I feel like that wasn't even, the release on that wasn't as wide. So I think so interesting.
It was considered a little bit of a surprise. The Barbie did win one award, which I'll get to in a minute, which I think is kind of a crock. But anyway, best performance by an actor in a motion picture, musical, or comedy, Paul Giamatti for The Holdovers.
Okay.
I'll admit, it's kind of surprised. He was up against Nicolas Cage for Dream Scenario, Timothy Chalamet for Wonka, Matt Damon for Air, Joaquin Phoenix for Beau is Afraid, musical or comedy. Like, don't you think of Beau is Afraid and you think
it's a laugh
roaring
riot.
comedy? Yeah,
Laugh riot.
and then Jeffrey Wright for American Fiction. So Paul Giamatti wins that. I'm kind of surprised, but given those other items, which I don't think any of those were runaway winners, I could see it. Best supporting actor in a motion picture, and again, not drama or comedy, just overall, was Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer. So Oppenheimer won Best Director, Best Drama Picture, Best Actor, and Best Supporting Actor.
The supporting actors aren't split, whereas
Correct.
the main lead actors are split
That's
between
right.
the categories. Okay.
Yep. Then Best Supporting Actress, again, not split out, just overall, was Divine Joy Randolph from The Holdovers.
Okay.
So The Holdovers performed pretty good. I mean, if I had to say that the films that really did well at the Golden Globes, it was definitely Oppenheimer, Poor Things, The Holdovers, and then we also had
Anatomy of a Fall.
Anatomy of a Fall, because Anatomy of a Fall got Best Foreign Language Picture. Let's see. Yep. Best Picture Non-English Language. And then, of course, they had gotten
The screenplay.
the screenplay.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
yeah. So I think it's interesting. It did okay. I mean, they also did TV stuff, but we won't go into TV. This is a film show, so
Right.
we'll keep it
Keep
on
it
that.
clean.
Keep
Yeah.
it clean. Yeah. So any just initial reactions?
I think Poor Things was the surprise for me. We reviewed it on the show, and I didn't like it as much as I thought I would, but I still, appreciated it. So it's weird to me to see that it has the splash that it did at Golden Globes. I wonder if that will translate to the Oscars or not. So
spoiler, yes, it will. I think it will.
Okay.
So Barbie did win one award.
oh yeah,
The Golden Globes,
which you said
announced-
was undeserved.
well, no, not
Okay.
undeserved.
Okay.
Just I think the award in general is kind of,
An odd one.
well, it's a new award
Okay.
that they came up with and started this year. And I think it's because I think they're looking at the Golden Globes and saying, look, we want to be a more serious awards contender. So we want to have better award choices and all. But we don't want to forget about the movies that made a lot of money and people like. So they have a Cinematic and Box Office Achievement Award. In other words,
So just who made the most money?
a little bit of that, or just who do we think had the most impact on the box office world in general? And I don't know. That's why I'm like, I don't really get this award. It's like, if you just want to base it off of box office, then yes, just give it to whatever film made the most money.
And it would be a surprise to no one because everybody's
Everybody's going to know. Oh yeah, well, Barbie made the most money, so
there you go.
Barbie won this award. But it had nominations for Barbie, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3,
Okay.
John Wick Chapter 4, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oppenheimer, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, The Super Mario Brothers, and Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour. Now, they tried to define this as an award of
that are saving movies because
kind of
it's getting
experience,
people to-
kind of like
Okay.
impact on the movie community. So everybody was kind of saying, well, it's either going to be Barbie or it could be Taylor Swift Eras Tour, just because that really did kind of change some
for a
dynamics in the
concert
movie
film
theater.
to make. Yeah, sure.
Right. But it was Barbie that won. Okay. And I still think it's a weird category. It's like, what are you trying to do other than just to make sure that you don't shut out Barbie? I mean, I feel like that's almost what it was. It's like, we're going to be serious about our awards and we're going to pick critical darling films and all that. But that also means the beloved film Barbie, that it was also critically acclaimed, is going to get left out of everything. So let's have an award that makes sure we recognize those films too.
I guess this is getting off track, but do they give any awards for original song?
Oh, they do. Yeah. And Barbie did win that.
Okay.
Yeah. But not for the song you're probably wanting.
Oh, interesting. So it didn't win for I'm Just Ken.
Nope. Huh. It was nominated for that.
Okay.
But it won for What Was I Made For, the Billie Eilish song.
Billie Eilish song.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That was the song that won. So I take it back. That is the one true award.
Or Dance the Night Away. Was it nominated for the Dua Lipa song?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But interesting.
Yeah, there were 6 nominations. 3 of them were Barbie songs. Then we also had a song by Bruce Springsteen from the film Addicted to Romance. She Came to Me. And the song is Addicted to Romance that he did for it.
Okay. Have not heard of the film.
Yeah. Jack Black doing Peaches on the Super Mario Brothers movie was nominated.
Sure.
And then Lenny Kravitz's song Road to Freedom for Rustin. Those were all nominated as original songs.
If Barbie doesn't win an Academy Award for one of those 3 songs, I just don't know anymore.
You're going to go flip Jeeps out in the parking lot and just burn it all down.
Well, they'd be, I guess if I was at the Oscar, it'd probably be like a bunch of Teslas or.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
But and here's, there again, I think I usually complain about this when we give our awards or when we talk about the Academy Awards. My thing is the song has to be used in the film, not during the credits.
Okay.
It has to be in the film. And now, granted, I think the Billie Eilish song is.
It is. Oh, yeah.
So I think all 3 of the ones that were nominated are. But to me, I'm Just Ken, I can't imagine that movie without that song.
Yeah. All 3 of the Barbie songs, they were part of the film.
Whereas I know there was there's been buzz about the song for the Hunger Games movie, the Songbirds and Snakes or whatever, but that was just a credit song. Okay. And so I'm like, okay, for me, that you're disqualified.
Well, I can't attest to the Bruce Springsteen song because I have not seen the movie. I want to say...
I think the Rustin song, the Lenny Kravitz, I think that's a credit song.
Credit song.
Yeah. I think. I've seen the film. I don't, but I think, it was a credit song.
All right. Well, that was the Golden Globes, Chris. So overall, it was, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, The Holdovers to some degree, and Anatomy of a Fall were kind of all the big winners. I'd say that won multiple awards. Sure. And kind of walked away pretty happy with the evening. I think, what does that translate to me for the Academy Awards? Of course, Academy Awards don't separate by genre, so it is all one pot.
Sure.
I still feel like we're on a fast track for Oppenheimer for director, best picture, best actor. Maybe best supporting actor, because I do think Robert Downey Jr.'s got a lot of headwinds behind him on that.
Sure. And that could be kind of a body of work type thing for him as well. Because,
So that's the Golden Globes. Overall, I think I enjoyed it more than I have in the past. I think they've done some good things with it. So we'll see what happens.
Thumbs up or thumbs down on the monologue? That has nothing to do with the awards, but
right. Not to go too deep.
I heard a lot about it.
Yeah,
so.
I didn't. I thought it was fine.
Okay.
I think he's gotten Joe Coy got a lot of bad press for his work on it. Supposedly he was only hired, a couple weeks in advance of the show. And
got you.
I thought the jokes were fine, but I think the celebrities were already pitchforks out ready to skewer him on it, no matter what he did on stage. I kind of got the impression.
So was it any worse than the things that Chris Rock got slapped over? I mean, it's kind of that's always been the thing, is you kind of know they're trying to be funny and they're going to make jokes, and it's going to be at the audience's expense. So I guess, was there anything outside?
I don't think a lot of the jokes were very good. Writing wise, I just don't think they were good jokes. But I don't blame the host for doing that. I mean, he's reading the jokes that are written. The only thing he did is he called himself out, which I wish he wouldn't have, several times, being like, if people didn't laugh as much as he thought, he's like, I didn't write these jokes. They were just given to me type of thing. Or if there was some that he did say, well, it's like, oh, that one I wrote and I know that was funny type of thing. It was just a little bit of that. I'm like, I think some of the other writers of the show kind of felt like they got thrown under the bus for a lot of stuff. But
Wow. Okay.
monologue was fine. It wasn't horrible. It was relatively short.
Oh. Okay.
Overall, I thought the show was pretty good. They kept it kind of tight and yeah. I had a good time with it. It was all right. All right. I got one more news item and then I want to hear your recommendation, Chris, for the episode. But now, I did tease
Cruise
already.
news.
Cruise news.
Yes.
Cruise news. Needs
Sound
to be said
effect.
like in a cool way. So Tom Cruise was in the news a little bit this past week or two, and just want to kind of
What has he done?
what has he done?
What has Tommy done? Has he jumped on some couches? What's he done?
No, well, first off, and this is just kind of
Has
more
he
of a
been
business.
jumping out of planes and making sure people know about it?
We'll get to that. We'll get to his stunts in a minute here.
Okay.
First up, he did sign a deal with Warner Brothers to now develop and produce original and franchise films with them. Now, if you recall, most of the films he's been doing have been Paramount films.
Right.
Mission Impossible is Paramount. Top Gun was Paramount. That's kind of been his home for a while. But Warner Brothers just made a deal with Mr. Cruise so that they will be working together. Supposedly, Tom Cruise now has an office on the Warner Brothers lot. He is kind of considered one of their crown jewels now for their studio. And they're looking forward to making many films together in the years ahead. So it will be both original films and franchises, although I don't know what franchises they'd be doing.
Is he going to be in the DC universe with Warner Brothers?
I doubt it. No, I don't think they're going to go with that. But I think whether starting some new franchise or something, I could see Tom Cruise trying to do that. Because, Mission Impossible, the last one didn't do as well as I think everybody expected. It's still got one more to come out for sure. Whether that franchise stays with Paramount or can move after that one film is released, I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. So Tom Cruise very still much in the movie making business.
Can they keep making
going
Top Gun movies, or could they transfer that over from?
So my next story is that just yesterday, actually this morning, this is hot off the press. Tom Cruise may be heading back to the danger zone, according to Variety. Variety is reporting that Paramount has tapped Top Gun Maverick co-writer Aaron Kruger to work on a script for a sequel. They're hoping that director Joe Kosinski will get back in the cockpit for another run at the series, which they're expecting will see Miles Teller and Glenn Powell kind of returning back.
Right.
But obviously Tom Cruise will have some sort of role in it, I'm sure.
I want him
well.
to just be like sitting behind a desk yelling at the young whippersnappers. Yeah, then I'll go see it.
It could be.
And have like a beard.
Yeah. So, kind of going back to the Warner Brothers story. So, Tom Cruise had made movies with Warner Brothers in the past. He made Interview with the Vampire, Eyes Wide Shut, Magnolia, and Edge of Tomorrow were all Warner Brothers films. So this arrangement he's got with Warner Brothers does allow him to still make movies with Paramount and others. So Paramount has Top Gun. So Top Gun, the new one, would be a Paramount movie. But
interesting. Eyes Wide Shut, Magnolia. Those are two of my probably favorite Tom Cruise performances in this film.
And I like Edge of Tomorrow quite a bit.
Hey,
I think
like
that's a really good movie of his.
What was the fourth one you mentioned?
Interview with the Vampire.
Oh, yeah. And back in his day when it came out, I was a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So you are a Universal Tom Cruise fan. Maybe not as much a Paramount Tom Cruise fan.
I guess, yeah. Warner Brothers are,
I'm sorry. Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
Warner
Unbeknownst to me,
Brothers,
I guess I kind of am.
Okay. Good to know. Let's see.
So maybe I'm going to start appreciating his work under Warner Brothers, maybe.
Well, yeah, I'm really curious when they say they want to do franchise movies with him. I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean? Because right now in my mind, Tom Cruise already has two franchises.
Right.
He's got the Mission Impossible, and Top Gun is becoming a franchise. They're going to make more Top Gun movies. So is he going to start something new, or is he going to be more of just a producer on some franchise work at Warner Brothers? I don't know. We will certainly see what comes out. The last thing in Cruise news I was going to mention, and this is actually an old story, but it came back up in this whole Warner Brothers thing.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we were all very, very aware of with Mr. Cruise's future work that we'll be seeing.
Okay.
So did we cover the story last year that Tom Cruise is working on a film right now with director Doug Liman, And it's at Universal. So that's another reason why I think the Universal deal kind of came to be, because he's been working on this big project that's a Universal film already. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting confused. He signed on with Warner Brothers, but he's doing a film with Universal as well. So he's got his
Mummy.
fingers.
He did the Mummy.
He did the Mummy with Universal, and now this one is the Universal movie.
Okay.
It is the one that takes place on the International Space Station. Have we talked about this?
I don't know.
All right. Well, it is a space project in the budget of like $200 million film.
Wow.
Starring Tom Cruise, directed by Doug Liman. And it's going to shoot scenes on the International Space Station.
Of course. He's going to do a spacewalk, and it's going to be
There
real.
you go. The plan is to have Cruise perform a spacewalk. He would be the first civilian to do a spacewalk outside of the space station.
I'm so surprised. Oh, man. Well,
I think it's awesome. So Universal, yes, here we go. Here's Tom Cruise's. I'm sorry, I'm getting all my studio names mixed up. Universal movies have included Edge of Tomorrow, which he did.
Okay.
Collaborated on Edge of Tomorrow. So I guess Edge of Tomorrow was a Warner Brothers and Universal collaborative film, because it also says that it was a Warner Brothers film.
Interesting.
God, I'm so confused. Where am I getting my news?
Fire the intern. That's what I say. Well, Doug Liman.
Yeah. It's saying Edge of Tomorrow was Warner Brothers, but then this other article is saying Edge of Tomorrow was a collaboration. Oh, no. That was Doug Liman and Tom Cruise collaborated on Edge of Tomorrow and American Made. Do you remember that movie?
That's the cocaine in an airplane.
The cocaine movie, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Boy, my intern really screwed up my notes on this show. I apologize. I've confused everything.
Well,
Tom Cruise has made a lot of movies. He's worked with a lot of studios.
Yes.
But he is definitely going to be working more with Warner Brothers.
Because he has an office.
Although Paramount is doing a Top Gun movie and Universal is doing a space movie.
Okay. Which will allow him to
Walk
do
in
a
space.
spacewalk.
Yes.
Cool.
I think I just cleared it all up for us. That's where we are with it.
I am interested in, we probably don't, is it a sci-fi or is it more of like a thriller action thing? With Doug Liman, I would assume.
I think it's
like
thriller action movie. And
right.
it also said that a majority of the film does not take place in the space station. So it's not like a full up in space movie,
Gotcha.
But that is going to be a part of it. That is all. Yeah, it says actually mostly takes place on Earth, and then the character needs to go up in space to save the day.
Okay.
The Universal chairwoman described Cruise's character as a, quote, down on his luck guy who finds himself in the position of being the only person who could save Earth.
Oh, yes. So Tom Cruise in Armageddon.
Yeah, that's what it is. They got to ship Tom Cruise up into space to stop something from happening. Look, I know you're chuckling, but I'm on board. I'm ready for this movie. Bring it on. Bring it on.
It could be a fun summer popcorn movie, sure.
All right. So that is all I've got for Cruise news. He is now linked up with Warner Brothers. Top Gun 3 is a go and happening. And Tom Cruise is going to soon be walking in space, and we can all watch him and pay $12 to see that happen. So, all right. Good. Chris, I'm done with my news.
Okay.
But we always like to leave people that listen to this show, if they've made it this far, haven't switched it off yet, it's a great reason to stay to the end, because Chris Rye has a recommendation of a film that he thinks we ought to check out, or at least ought to consider if you're looking for something to watch in the coming days and need some recommendations. Chris is here with one. So what have you got for us today?
So I'm going to recommend a documentary from 2023. It's called The Mission.
Okay.
It tells the story of an American Christian missionary, John Chow, who was murdered when he tried to illegally contact and convert some of the world's last uncontacted indigenous people. The film features exclusive interviews and archival footage, some shot by John himself, and it explores themes that talk about colonialism, anthropology, religion, of course, and where do you draw the line between faith and fanaticism, exploration and exploitation, imagination and destruction. So it's really an interesting film. It is kind of a tough watch because you know the entire time what the end point is going to be. I mean, they kind of mention it's a historical fact. We know what happened to this guy. But it's just really, really fascinating. The fact that there was a place that basically man was not, not rope it off, but the island is not allowed. Governments keep people from going to the island on purpose. So the indigenous people that live there, they literally are all on their own. It's really just it's really, really fascinating. And this story happened recently, I think in the 2000s. I can't remember the exact date. So I remember hearing this story in the news that this guy had been killed.
Yeah.
So it was just interesting to hear the behind the scenes and stuff. There were one point, there's an interview with somebody that knew him. I think he was a member of this guy's church at one point. And I'm just going to read the quote that he says. There's some sort of like idealism that's masquerading as God's calling, but this is behavior that's gone on for better or worse for 2,000 years in church history. So I didn't ever feel like it was up to me to say, John, you're wrong. In discerning the call, we can mess it up. And that's kind of what he says about what happened. Very chilling. And the interviews of the people are very interesting as well. So it's The Mission. It's kind of a difficult film, but it's on Hulu and it's also on Disney Plus through because it's a National Geographic film, so that's how it comes there.
Interesting.
But yeah, it's called The Mission, so it's an interesting watch.
All right,
so.
That is definitely one I'll have to check out or very curious about. Interesting. I had not heard anything about it, so that's a new one on me. Great. Thank you, Chris, for the recommendation as always.
No problem.
And that will wrap up our show today. So we had our positive review of The Color Purple. Lukewarm, middling to slightly negative review of Ferrari. And then we shared some cruise news. We did some Golden Globes. And then Chris's recommendation to bring us back down to serious matter with the recommendation of The Mission documentary.
Yeah,
on
not to be
Disney Plus.
documentary, not to be confused with like the Robert De Niro 1986. Right. Also a good film.
Good movie.
Yeah.
But this is a different
yeah.
thing. Okay. All right, Chris. Well, if anybody wants to reach out to us and talk about any of these reviews or any news items we shared, or just talk about anything in general, how do they get a hold of us?
They can send an email to info@footcandle.org. We're on Twitter @FootCandleFilm, Facebook, Footcandle Film Society. We're also on Instagram and Threads, just simply Footcandle Film. We're on Letterboxd, where we try to track what we're seeing and leave quick takes sometimes. Do us a favor. If you like the show, consider giving us a star rating, write a review, or share with friends on whatever service you listen to your favorite podcast, because it would help us reach new listeners, and we'd appreciate it.
All right. Well, that will wrap it up for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening, and we'll look forward to talking to you next time as we bring some other movies to review, hopefully some other movie news and recommendations as well. So we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
See you in the ticket line.
Watch films in the company of like-minded people in the dark. Watch films in the underground. We won't let anyone know where you are. The films that don't make it to Carmike at the mall, or ones that were famous when Grandpa would watch films out of the reverence of the heritage of an art. Watch films through the courtesy of Footcandle Film Society.
Special thanks to Carpal Tuller for the show theme music. For more about Carpal Tuller, visit www.carpaltuller.com. You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.